Well, good afternoon, everyone. Before I start with the minister, I just like to let the rest of the committee know we had a very, very successful trip on the Western United States, and I got to thank the clerk and the analysts here for pulling that trip together. It was very, very, very busy, active, very productive, and I got to thank committee members for keeping up with the pace. It was not only, we definitely had the Canadian flag flowing down there for us, but it was a good interaction, and I hope that continues when we travel the rest of the United States. So thank you, everybody, for being cooperative, and again, thanks for people that organize it. Minister, welcome. Thank you for taking your time to come here. As I told you, this is the most vibrant, hardest working, influential, most handsomest committee on the Hill. So
you're taking words from my speech, Mr. Chair.
But anyway, welcome, Minister, and I know and also, Minister, I also like to pass on the great work your Parliamentary Secretary is doing to keep us informed of what you're doing and keeping us all together here too. So thank you. And before much further ado, because we're starting late today, and
no, late. We're starting right after the bells.
Okay, we're good to go. So, Minister, thank you for coming, and thank you for all the work you're doing. And the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Monsieur le Président. Merci. Chers collègues,
dear colleagues, it's a joy to be with you today for the first time.
My first of, I hope, many such appearances before your committee. I think when it comes to trade, we have to act as one team, and I really want to thank the committee for the tremendous work you've been doing over the last 13 months. And really, I have heard from different members of this committee, Mr. Chair, of all the work you've been doing on behalf of Canadians. And I really want to commend, you've traveled, you've listened to Canadians, and I very much look forward to obviously read the report. In particular, I want to thank you for the extensive consultations the committee undertook during your study on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And obviously, I'll be happy, dear colleagues, to answer any questions following the meeting we had in Chile, as I outlined or mentioned to the question period. I look forward to reading your full report, obviously, on this study. I commend you for undertaking that. It's important to hear the views of Canadians, and I wish that we will continue to engage together in this endeavor. Your diligent work on that important file will no doubt inform and guide the government's trade efforts in the Asia-Pacific region and our pursuit of a truly progressive trade agenda in the years to come. And clearly, as if I may say, Mr. Chair, Asia-Pacific is and will remain a key pillar of our trading relationship. And I want, again, to say to each and every one of you, took time away, probably also from your families and your different travel, to have undertook that. Compte tenu de ce qui se passe dans le monde, les travaux que nous...
Given what's going on in the world, the work we're doing on behalf of Canadians is more important than it has ever been before. Canada's participation in international trade is essential to ensure that we can enjoy prosperity throughout the country. Canada has always been a trading nation. Exports play a crucial role in our economy and contribute to growth, productivity, and job creation throughout the country, and I would say in each and every one of our ridings. Exports represent 30% of Canada's GDP, and directly or indirectly lead to about 1 job out of 6 for Canadians workers.
About 0.5% of the world population, and about 2.2% of world trade. So we are a nation dependent on trade, and that's why the work of this committee and our officials, I'd like to thank the Deputy and the Parliamentary Secretary and all members of this House and this committee. What we're doing is extremely important in the lives of Canadians. This is why we believe that trade and investment means growth for our businesses and the economy. And growth in turn means well-paying jobs for the middle class and those obviously working hard to join it. Nous savons que cela est vrai en raison de la hausse très marquée.
We know this is true, given the increase in quality of life since the Second World War, both in developed and developing countries. The liberalization of trade over the last decades have played a crucial role. In parallel, we know that not everyone has benefited from these advantages to the same extent. We're seeing the results of this today. With that in mind, we must remember the legitimate concerns of Canadians and respond.
It's time to realize that this anger and anxiety we see washing over the world is coming from a very real place, and it's not going away. We need to do everything we can to ensure that the benefits of trade are more widely and equitably shared. Failure to do so will only strengthen the forces of protectionism and embolden those opposed to freer and more open trade. C'est pourquoi le Canada met en œuvre un programme commercial.
That's why Canada is creating a progressive trade system with our partners within the country and elsewhere in the world. What do we mean by progressive trade? Well, it means that ensuring that all segments of society can benefit from the opportunities flowing from trade and investment, specifically women, Indigenous peoples, youth, and SMEs.
In dedicated chapters with trade agreements or the modernization of existing ones. For example, it means adding a chapter on gender, including parity, pay equity, and gender-based risk assessments. These are concrete and real steps we can take to put our trade agenda on a more progressive footing. This is not just the right thing to do, Mr. Chair, it's also essential for economic growth and prosperity. SMEs, including those owned by women, youth, and Indigenous peoples, are the dynamos of our economies and the lifeblood of our communities. In Canada, for example, SMEs account for virtually all Canadian businesses and employ 90% of our private sector workforce. But only a small percentage of these businesses export. Under our progressive or middle-class trade agenda, we are putting their needs and aspirations and those of all non-traditional business owners and entrepreneurs front and center to help them reach their full export potential. De plus, le commerce progressiste signifie
Progressive trade also means showing openness and transparency and pursuing a constant dialogue with civil society and a wide range of stakeholders. It also means that we must ensure that trade agreements include solid provisions in important areas like labor rights, gender equality, and environmental protection. They must also strengthen government's right to regulate in the public interest.
Sure, international trade works for businesses and citizens alike, that it works for people. Our government stands for these progressive values and is promoting them at the Commonwealth, the G7, the G20, WTO, and elsewhere. And I may add, ladies and gentlemen, that everywhere I go, I do talk about our progressive trade agenda, and I can tell you it does make a difference. Canada is recognized around the world as a leader for rule-based principled trade, and that's what makes Canada so special. Un exemple de la mise en application du commerce progressiste est la
An example of implementation of progressive trade is the WTO's agreement on trade facilitation. The most important benefits of this agreement will be aimed at developing countries and SMEs, for which trade costs are too high. The WTO believes that implementing this agreement could reduce trade expenses by an average of 14% and add up to $1 billion to the value of global exports, including up to $730 billion to developing countries. According to the World Bank, up to 10 million women in the developing world could benefit from these efforts that aim to allow SMEs to become more competitive when it comes to exports. Those are the achievements that we need to communicate and the results that we should expect to reach together.
Developing countries to fully implement their commitments under the TFA, including through the Global Alliance for Trade Facilitation. Canada is a co-founder of the alliance. which was launched in December 2015. As a platform for leveraging public and private sector expertise, leadership, and resources, the Alliance helps developing country members of the WTO implement commercially meaningful TFA-related reforms. Canada also looks forward to the provisional application of our modern, progressive free trade agreement with the EU, otherwise referred as CETA. This agreement represents a landmark initiative toward ensuring our country's prosperity. We have negotiated market access and improved conditions for trade that go beyond NAFTA. But more importantly, we have done so in a progressive and responsible manner. This agreement will help to generate much-needed growth and jobs while fully upholding Canada's and Europe's standards in areas like food safety, environmental protection, and workers' rights. And I think, Mr. Chair, this is something we should all be proud of as Canadians. This was an agreement that was crafted more than 10 years ago. Many people have worked on making this a reality for Canadians. And as I've said many places in the world, this is the right deal at the right time for the world. De plus, la SCG offrira aux entreprises canadiennes de...
Moreover, we are offering Canadian companies new business opportunities in the European Union. The procurement market is estimated at $3.3 trillion. And it also offers access to a consumer market of more than 510 million people. Once the agreement is implemented, Canadian businesses will be able to offer goods and some services to all levels of EU government, including to the 28 member states of the EU, as well as to thousands of regional administrations. CETA will also offer consumers lower prices and more choice, and will help workers thanks to the creation of better paid export jobs. It will also help our businesses, whatever their size, thanks to a decrease in costs due to the elimination of tariff and non-tariff costs.
Completed also included several key progressive elements. These elements will help ensure that as we deepen our trade relationship with Ukraine, the economic gains are achieved while promoting Canadian values and priorities. For example, the agreement includes comprehensive commitments on labor and environment in dedicated chapters. These chapters are high standard and provide strong protections, including mechanism for any citizen to raise trade-related concerns in either of these areas, and if necessary, dispute resolution process. The agreement also includes anti-corruption provisions that oblige Canada and Ukraine to adopt or maintain legislation on anti-corruption, and these are also subject to a dispute settlement mechanism for use in the event of a perceived violation. L'AECG.
I just don't want to interrupt you.
Sure.
You have much time left because we're concerned about getting our questions in.
I think well, Mr. Chair, if you want me to stop there, but I'd like to bring the committee.
Okay.
We're about, if you leave me another 3-5 minutes, and I'm willing to extend the time so that every member can ask their question.
Okay.
Because I think the last part is talking about Asia and what we've been doing. If the committee obviously...
Okay. If you're going to stay longer, go ahead, sir.
I'm happy.
We'll run as long as sorry.
I'm happy to stay another 5 minutes if I take 5 minutes more to make sure the committee. I'd like to share with the committee what we've been doing in the last 100 days.
Go ahead. Yeah.
L'AECG, l'accord de libre-échange avec le...
CETA, the agreement with the Ukraine, and the TFA with the WTO show that it is possible to make progressive agreements both bilaterally and multilaterally. Canada is proud of participating in these agreements, which places the middle class and those who are working hard to join it at the very heart of our trade program.
Consumers, for workers, for exporters across our country, because we all know that trade means growth and growth means job. In the coming months, I will continue to pursue my mandate on 2 important fronts that I'd like to share with the committee. First, I will continue my work on trade negotiations. None of the benefits of trade that we celebrate will be available to Canadians in the absence of rule-based approach to trade. Second, but no less important, I will continue to promote trade. Canadian businesses are among the best in the world, and it is my task to promote them across the globe. And I must say, I know, Chair, that a number of members of the committee have done likewise, and I'd like to thank them for that. As the Chief Marketing Officer of Canada, I will continue to push Canadian talents to buyers and investors abroad. I will also work to ensure that Canadians know what opportunities are available to them, and I'm engaged constantly with our Trade Commissioner Service to ensure that Canadian companies, both small and large, get the assistance they need to get their products to market. By the end of next week, I will have been 100 days since I was appointed Minister of International Trade, and it has been a busy and exciting journey so far. I have traveled to India to advance the case for Canadian pulps. I met with key ministers in Qatar to explore new opportunities for commercial investment in Canada. In Dubai, I promoted Canada as a strategic destination for investment and financial growth. And I went with the Minister of Youth, and I invited her also to meet with the Youth Council of our Prime Minister to make sure that we start building these relationships with youth between our two countries. In Sydney, Australia, I reiterated and expanded on our commitment to support more women entrepreneurs in trade. In Chile, I reaffirmed my desire to have free trade and preferential access for Canadian exporters throughout the Asia-Pacific region. And in Mexico, I met with my trade counterpart to explore the opportunities that Canada and Mexico can foster through working together. This is just to name a few, Mr. Speaker. And in the interest of time, I'm happy to finish there and engage with the member of the committee and engage in whether we've done in the last 100 days. But let me just finish again to say I am grateful for the invitation, grateful to be working with all of you. I think that together we can achieve a lot. Trade is something that touches every Canadian, touches every region of our country, touches every riding in our nation. And I'm pleased to see the work you've done, because when we are out there, we are Team Canada. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you, sir. And we're going to start off. I got right now pegged 6 slots, so there's 3 Liberals, 2 Conservatives, and an NDP. And if we can keep going, we'll keep going as long as the minister can. So we're going to start off with, we'll try to keep 5 minutes, keep it tight. So we're going to start off with the Conservatives. And Mr. Holbach, you're on first.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair and Minister. Great to see you here. You'll find this committee a very well-functioning committee, well-behaved, and we work well together, and we plan on continue doing that. So far. I do want to say that I do have some concerns in regards to NAFTA, in regards to the renegotiated NAFTA that's coming forward. And I know the U.S. isn't your file, but Mexico is your file. And then I also have concerns in China, because there seems to be a progression to move to a trade deal with China at the same time as trying to do NAFTA. And I'm wondering, because of the de-link between you not being involved in the U.S. file, the understanding that moving forward into China could actually have negative implications with their number 1 trading partner, that's the U.S. Have you taken that into consideration? And then the other thing I want to draw to your attention is an article that came out of the Globe and Mail today. Robert Fife and Stephen Chase are talking about a survey they've done where 88% of Canadians are uncomfortable with prospects of deeper economic ties with China. And they're talking specifically about state trading enterprises and having them unfettered access into the Canadian market. The other concerns, of course, is democracy and human rights. When we did a trade deal with Honduras, for example, democracy and human rights was front and center. That was a big part of that trade deal. And then to hear that our new ambassador basically saying that it's not clear to me whether human rights per se will be part of any trade agreement is very concerning. So can you shed a little bit of light on that aspect of it? Because as you go down that road, I have a lot of concerns of us doing a trade agreement with China and actually doing more harm with our existing trading partners by going down that avenue.
First of all, well, I'd like to say thank you for the question and thank you for your work on the committee. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, as you rightly said, has the lead on the file with respect to the U.S. negotiation. However, as you would appreciate, this is a whole-of-government approach. I must say that when I was in Chile, even the U.S. was represented at the table, and Canada was asked to be the first to speak. To set the stage. And in my remarks, I did welcome the presence of the U.S. at the table that we had there. With respect to China, I would say Canada will follow its own process. I mean, for me, what we've said is that I think we owe it to Canadian workers, to Canadian families, to Canadian exporters to look carefully at this market. What we've said is, for me, what I call the essential first step is to have exploratory talks to see whether or not, in which industry, there would be a net benefit to Canadians. And that's why we are going step by step engaging with the officials to have meetings, engaging with Canadians. I already had roundtable. I think one was in Winnipeg and one more recently. We want to hear from Canadians. And I must say, I want to hear from you as well. This is, it reminds me a bit when we engaged on the CETA deal. Those who crafted that a decade ago could not anticipate necessarily, the time and impact this would have on the economy. But I think you would appreciate that Canadian, and I can say I've met a number of Canadian businesses, and Mr. Ritz would know we were just having a discussion about CAFTA, for example, which is obviously very keen on us engaging. What I would call is that it is a step-by-step engagement. We want to hear from Canadians. We want to hear from you. I want to hear from industry. We're looking at that very carefully. And one other step that I'm doing as Minister of International Trade, I have been engaging, for example, with our Australian colleagues to take lessons learned. You would expect that from Minister to just engage with them. We're doing that regularly with them just to make sure that we understand what has been their experience in having a free trade agreement with China.
Okay, so then, when I look at China, and China's an important market, and I think it sounds like you're going to tread very lightly, and it's going to take a period of time before this moves forward. What about Japan? Wouldn't it be better to be looking at Japan and more seriously at this point in time, making sure we got key market access into Japan for our beef and dairy and our beef and manufacturing, I should say? The reason I say that is the U.S. is proceeding onto a bilateral agreement with Japan. So that means our beef sector, our grain sector, are actually going to be left out of that market. So wouldn't our resources be better utilized at this point in time, exploring a bilateral with Japan, if we can't do it through some sort of TPP multilateral facet?
Well, thank you again for the question. Let me say, when we were in Chile, actually, Canada and Japan were very close in that discussion. I think we have both, like I said, we are the largest customer to the United States. They are a very large economy. I had a number of discussions with my Japanese counterpart. When we're in Chile, like I said, this meeting was about purpose, action, and ambition. Purpose is that people recommitted to free trade and rule-based trade in the Asia-Pacific region, namely Japan, but all the other countries. Action, we have agreed to task our officials to come back with options for when we meet at the next summit, which is in APEC in Vietnam. And we also agreed that we should maintain a level of ambition and progressive elements, and I was pleased to see other delegation basically taking words from the Canadian comments to include that in their own, saying actually progressive needs to be part of that. I am in very close contact with Japan. I have proposed, sir, to our Japanese counterpart. I said, listen, we might as well work together on the track of increasing trade on a multilateral level in the Asia-Pacific region. But I've already offered, sir, to our Japanese colleagues that I would be much interested if they wanted to start again the bilateral discussion. As you know, we had one. It was put on hold at their request because they wanted to focus on TPP. But I have indicated to various ministers, because they came with 3 ministers and another one. So there was, at every opportunity, the wish of Canada to work cooperatively with them with respect to Asia-Pacific, but also in a bilateral nature, because I think, just like you said, there would be interest, and I'm waiting to hear from them. Perhaps when we come back from Vietnam, we'll have, I think this is under consideration at their side.
Okay,
but this is something that obviously we would be interested in doing.
Okay, thank you, Minister. That wraps his time up, and we're going to move over to the Liberals, and I hear you're going to split some time. Go ahead, Mr.
Chair,
Farrell.
and Mr. Minister, thank you for coming, and I would like to echo Mr. Haubeck's comments that we are working together very well, and when we were in U.S. and we were Team Canada. Minister, when more and more we see on an international scene, we see the protectionists coming forward. How do you envision Canada's role while proceeding with these trade agreements? And if we do that, how they are going to help middle class?
Well, first, thanks for the question. Obviously, oftentimes I was reflecting. I had the chance to attend the Commonwealth meeting, the bilateral relation with Australia, also the discussion in Chile. And I must say, in the world of uncertainty and where the level of unpredictability, Canada stands out as a beacon of stability, predictability, a rule-based, rule of law, a very strong financial system, a nation which is both inclusive and diverse, which is very much attracting investment or interest in our country. I must say the progressive trade that has been put forward, one which would obviously favor women in business, consider youth, indigenous people, underrepresented people in trade, and focusing on SMEs is making a real difference. I cannot state enough to this committee how much the views of Canada are respected in the world. People see us, as I said, as that beacon of stability in the world, but also the world is looking at Canada. Just look at CETA. This is the most progressive trade agreement ever negotiated by either Canada or the European Union. I must say that at most meetings where I've been, people refer to CETA as the most progressive deal, and we're looking at this agreement to say this is the gold standard in the world. And I've heard that time and time again as I was traveling. So definitely the way to push against protectionism is for Canada, in my view, to continue to engage as we're doing, whether it's with CETA, whether it's in the Asia-Pacific region, whether it's with the Pacific Alliance, whether it's with Mercosur, always promoting a rule-based system and one which contains progressive elements. That's what distinguishes Canada in the world today. That's what people want to do, trade with Canada.
Thank you. Madame Lepage.
Merci beaucoup d'être avec nous aujourd'hui. C'est très important.
Thank you for being here today. We greatly appreciate it. Earlier, you said that you visited various countries, including Australia. So you've heard from female-owned companies and female-managed companies. Here in Canada, 5% of Canadian companies are owned by, or rather, only 5% of women-owned companies are exporting. What is the government going to do to help women in business trade with the outside world? Well, thank you, Ms. Lapointe, for your question. Indeed, I had a roundtable with female entrepreneurs in Australia. We did the same thing in other countries that I visited. One of the most important things is the connections between people. What I've tried to do in discussions in Chile and Australia was to develop networks. For example, in Chile, I forget the name of the organization, but it was a group of Toronto entrepreneurs which set up relationships with businesswomen in Chile. We tried to do the same thing in Australia. There was a lot of interest in sharing experiences and knowledge. And there was also an interest in developing relationships between our countries that already have major trade relationships. What you're saying is important. In Winnipeg, we met with the president of the Indigenous Association that exports. It's an international organization. Now, the president of this organization is a woman from Winnipeg, and their next meeting will be in South America. And to give you concrete examples, we want to use that summit to form an association with her in order to help women who live in indigenous communities in various countries to take advantage of opportunities with foreign buyers. We know that in some cases, buyers increasingly want to favor or promote underrepresented communities like women or youth. Various organizations want to do that, and we want to help. My first meeting in Chile was with the organization UN Women, an organization based in Chile which promotes indigenous women in business. That's the kind of thing that when Canada takes up the cause, we cast a lot of light and emphasis on these specific activities that help women in business. So it's all about networks and relationships, helping female entrepreneurs here forge links with entrepreneurs elsewhere.
It was good questions and good answers, and we're going to move over to the NDP. Go ahead, Ms. Ramsey.
Thank you, Minister, for being here today. As you said, we have a very active committee, and we are certainly looking at a lot of different files. You spoke a lot about the Liberal government and their desire to be progressive and open and transparent. And I think that China will be a big test of that. It will really be the first agreement negotiated by the Liberal government. All the agreements so far have been, from the Conservatives. We're kind of picking up where you left off. So we also have the Trade and Services Agreement, TISA, which really the government has been silent on. There are many labor groups, many groups across this country who are concerned about TISA and the implications. This is in very advanced rounds. In the EU, they report after each round, the European Commission. This is past the 21st round of negotiating, yet we hear nothing here in Canada. And this is, I believe, where people are people are continuing to feel left out of trade agreements and that there isn't openness, there isn't transparency. So I wonder if you can update us on TISA and, when will we see the transparency and openness that's been promised around TISA?
Well, Mr. Chair, well, first of all, thank you for the question. I think that throughout the CETA negotiation, we have made public at every round the documents that were coming out of. I appreciate the question was on TISA, but I just say when you were questioning whether we've been open and transparent, I think there's been a desire from the beginning to engage people in the negotiation and be very transparent. That's why, for example, on China, we're starting negotiation.
But with all due respect, Minister, that's not across every agreement. This isn't, what happened in CETA is different than what's happened in TPP, is different than what's happened in TISA. So my question really is specifically around the Trade and Services Agreement.
And my answer to you was exactly that we are committed to open and transparency when we negotiate these agreements. We have been engaging with province, with territories. We are continuing to do that. I have been fairly transparent even in the discussions that led and the ones that I just recently had on different agreements. With respect to TISA, I'll be happy to come back to you, look at officials, what we can provide you to provide you more transparency. What I tell you... It's
not just myself. I think it's like on Global Affairs website, it's very thin. Like when we compare to the European Commission and what they're posting for all Europeans to see, there's a vast difference in the amount of information that's being shared with European people versus what's being shared here. And so I think if there really is a desire to share things and be open and transparent, perhaps the European model is a good one to follow, in the spirit of our agreement with them as well. So my second question to you, we've been having a study here on Chinese steel dumping. This is a very real, serious concern for our steel industry in Canada. And we saw it alluded to in the budget, but I have two questions. So the first one really is, when can we expect the changes to the trade remedy system that are being called for really across the board? I've never heard, every person at the table calling for the exact same thing, and that's an update, a modernization of our trade remedy system, and that's what's coming out of that sector. And my second question is, will Canada grant market economy status to China?
So on China and steel, as you would expect, I met with the industry representative just recently. I note, like you, in the budget, I can tell you for sure when that particular measure would come into place. You know that market status economy is my colleague, the Minister of Finance, which is looking into that. What I can say to you is that we are very cognizant of what's going on in steel, not only in Canada, but I can tell you when I meet with my counterparts, this is something that we are considering and we're discussing. This is a real issue. We are very cognizant of the fact the budget, like you said, mentioned a number of things, and we are consulting with the industry. I even did that in my previous role with the industry, so quite familiar with them. With respect to the exact date of the application, we would have to come back to you with that.
So will Canada grant China market economy status at the WTO?
As I said to you, that's not a decision that is taken by the Minister of International Trade. So we would have to... we will look into that, but the Minister of Finance is the one who makes that determination on behalf of Canada.
So can you tell us then what conversations you've had with the Chinese around the steel dumping and the issue that we have here?
Yes, I did not have discussion with the Chinese on steel dumping, personally.
Okay. So my next question,
Seconds. So quick question, quick answer, sir.
I will do my best, Chair.
So TPP then, so are we pursuing TPP 2.0? You've come out of Chile with these clear kind of guidelines on where you go between then and Vietnam. Is that your desire then to pursue something, to collaborate something out of what was left of the TPP?
How many seconds I have to respond to that, Chair? Seems.
I just, in all due respect, everybody wants to hear this one. So.
Right, okay. Well, I'm happy.
You got at least 30 seconds.
Okay, well, that's good because I was afraid in 2 seconds. So what we said at the meeting in Chile is that what we have asked is to task our officials to look at various options. What we did in Chile was to recommit to rule-based trade and open trade in the Asia-Pacific region. A number of countries around the table wanted to take the various options under advisement and ask the officials to come back with options to be discussed in Vietnam. So that's kind of the process that was laid out, because different nations were at different place with respect to what would be the best options to follow. There's a number of options on the table, but they wanted to seek officials, I can say counsel, before they were committing at the table. So I expect that we would hear more from that when we are meeting in Vietnam. That's the process we have agreed.
Thank you. Good questions, good answers, and away we go. We're over to the Conservatives, and we're still finishing this round. We still have Liberals. We're Liberals, and we're going to have split time. And Madam Ludwig and Mr. Fonseca, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, for joining us today. As you know, I represent the riding of New Brunswick Southwest in Atlantic Canada, and there is definitely much excitement and discussion about the trade opportunities within the fish and seafood sector. There are reports that lobster fishers in Maine are none too happy about Canada's newfound access to the European market. Should Canadian fish and seafood producers see opportunity as a tariff-free springboard to greater markets?
Well, I'm happy you asked that question, because when I was in London, I made the headlines talking about lobster and maple syrup, because I was at Nick Robertson's show on BBC in the morning, and they were asking me, give me a very concrete example, and I said lobster. Lobster today, our fishermen today, which export lobster to the European Union, would have a tariff of up to 25%. And at provisional application, these tariffs would go down to zero. And I use that example to say we have 9,000 tariff lines, which will come down to zero on day one of provisional application of CETA. So this was a very clear example when you're saying, so what does that do to people? So you look at consumers, so you think, well, that should lead to better choices and better prices. It looks at exporters, so I think our fishing and seafood industry is looking at that favorably, obviously, because this is opening up a new market, which was obviously extremely difficult to enter with a tariff that high. And it's also looking at I would say workers, because that should lead to more employment. So I think what you were alluding to is that one governor in south of Alberta saw that, and I think it's just a reflection of what preferential market access can do to Canadians, Canadian SMEs, and Canadian businesses. This is a very clear example of getting preferential market access in Europe. The largest consumer of food products in the world is a game changer for a number of people in this industry. And that's exactly the example that I used on BBC and was reported in the Sun paper on the front page, that Canadian lobster now should be more freely available and provide more choice and better prices for consumers in England.
Thank you.
And throughout Europe, obviously.
Do I have more time, Mark?
You're going to split it.
Okay, go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Minister, as we look to, we look at our trade, and in some ways we've been top-heavy in terms of our trade with the United States, our biggest trading partner, and for too long, maybe because things have been easy in some respects, we have not really looked to diversify our markets. And now with a laser-like focus, we have a tremendous opportunity, having CETA gone through the House, been ratified here, and moving towards looking at that market. When we were over and on a committee's trip out west, we heard from a group in Denver, and what they had to say was amazing. They were saying, we heard from a corporate lawyer, would not divulge his client, but what he said is his client is looking to locate in Canada. They're from Europe, located in Canada because of CETA. So it's working already. It is already starting to bear fruits. They are in the wind turbine business, locating here, being able to do business also with the United States and vice versa, looking at us as a gateway. Can you inform us in terms of the strategy for CETA as we look to attract those businesses, more businesses here to Canada from Europe, as well as from the United States now through Canada into Europe, and looking at Canada as a gateway using CETA as the vehicle?
Well, first of all, thanks for the question. It's a very interesting question, Chair, because when I was at Asia, I was said Canada is almost the bridge between the Pacific and the Atlantic. We have now, we will have very shortly at provisional application of CETA, preferential market access to about 1.1 billion consumers, access to a public procurement market in Europe, which is about 3.3 trillion. So obviously, to your point, this is being registered around the world. So people understand now that Canada, because of our geography, because of our progressive trade agenda, because of our well-managed economy, is becoming very, very attractive. I mean, these numbers are big. When you start saying to people, whether it's in the Asia-Pacific or elsewhere in the world, that if you locate in Canada and you employ Canadians and you provide services or goods, you will have now access to a very large market in Europe. You have access, obviously, to NAFTA, to the U.S. and Mexico. And obviously, we're pursuing our trade agenda in the Asia-Pacific. So Canada is becoming the place of choice. I have been in different places, and people were saying, just like you said, locating their business in Canada makes more sense than ever now, as we're becoming this bridge between the Pacific and the Atlantic, and we have obviously our very privileged geography of being in North America. So this is something that resonates. And I would say, Chair, when the committee is traveling, I mean, those are the type of message that I would hope when we go as Team Canada abroad, that we need to repeat, because people take note of these numbers, and it might sound obvious to us, but when you repeat them, I must say people take notice of that, and this is to our advantage.
Thank you, sir. Before we go second round, I got a quick question for you, because you were saying you were speaking to the BBC, so one would assume you were speaking mostly to the British. And did the conversation come up, you're talking about the lobsters, but they are planning on leaving the Union, so did you kind of tell them, what did you say to the British audience about former agreements, or how did that play out?
Well, as you would expect, when you're in London, people have been focusing on Brexit. So what we've been saying there is that, we will have a free trade agreement with the UK very soon. It's called CETA. And as long as the UK remains in Europe, and depending on the time of their process, they will have a free trade agreement. And even Dr. Fox, Liam Fox, recommitted to me to push that along in their own parliament to ratify CETA. Now, what I've been saying as well is that this is our largest trading partner in Europe. So we are very committed to continuity and stability and predictability. I mean, this is in Canada's best interest, as well as in their own interest. So what I've been saying to them is that there's informal discussions taking place, but things that work well should continue. Now, the form that this will continue, we'll have to see over time. But certainly on both sides, we want to ensure stability, predictability, and continuing that very good relationship that has been beneficial for both Canada and the UK. This is what I've repeated when I was in the UK. This is what I say when I'm in Canada. And I think that's a message that people understand on both sides of the Atlantic very well.
Thank you, sir. You're good for 10 more minutes with us?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to go 5 minutes Liberals and 5 minutes Conservatives. Go ahead, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being with us today, Mr. Minister. We appreciate your insight. I want to look at sort of a macro level. You've been traveling for the last 100 days, effectively, learning a lot about international trade and speaking with some of our partners in international trade. And I just want to take a step beyond CETA for a moment, and just if you have any indication.
That was my interview on BBC.
It was a great interview. If you have any insight or thoughts, or even have had discussions with what other countries are we looking at, what sort of trade opportunities are available for Canada, especially in light of some of the more protectionist sentiments that might be in some other countries. Is this do you feel this is an opportunity for Canada, and what are we doing to tap into that opportunity, if so? Well,
very much indeed, and I want to thank you for the question. We talk a lot about CETA and obviously provisional application, so we know that this is coming. Like you said, Asia-Pacific, obviously engaging very constructively. Canada, I think, was one of the leaders in these discussions to make sure that countries would recommit to open and rule-based trade in that part of the world. We mentioned Japan. We offered to say, why don't we would be happy to do to restart, on a bilateral. There's also ASEAN, which is obviously a very big grouping in that region. As you know, my predecessor had asked for a preliminary feasibility study. I've been pushing. Canada is more than ready to go ahead. It seems that the institute that's been tasked by the ASEAN may need a bit of support. So I've been talking to Philippines, I've been talking to Singapore to try to ask them to be our ally in pushing a bit the issue, because we want that study to be done very quickly, because I would like to start engaging with ASEAN. But obviously this is an essential step that was put in the process, which we are very much, I had discussion with my counterparts every time, asking them to try to make sure that on their side they would put the resources needed to go to that feasibility study. If I have a few minutes here or a few seconds, I would say, as you may have seen, the Pacific Alliance has also mentioned recently that they would have a tier approach. Canada was first, but they're looking at potential different level of integration. So we're in discussion with them. We are also, as you would expect us, in the market, and it's on diversification is key. So every time that I would think there's a net benefit for Canadians, I am willing to engage constructively, as I said, whether it's with China, whether it's Japan, whether it's in the South American region. I just came back with the free trade agreement we have with Chile and the modernization. So everywhere we can, where it makes sense for us, we want to engage proactively and constructively, but also taking a leading role like we've been doing in Chile. So definitely the key is diversification, and we're looking both east, west, and south in that sense to make sure that we can open as much or as many markets as possible for SMEs, with a focus on really make it work for workers, but also for SMEs, which I think has the biggest potential in my view. If we can engage SMEs, an underrepresented group in trade, we will have achieved something great for Canada.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's time.
Thank you, Carl. We're going to move over to the Conservatives. You guys are going to wrap it up for 5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Ritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister. And Tim, it's good to see you, or Deputy Sergeant. Sorry, you have a title now. The one thing with the Japanese bilat is you never get the same level of ambition that you do in a multilateral, and I'm still very much in the camp that we need to resurrect TPP 2.0, whatever it takes. And I think I've seen a growing desire from Australia, New Zealand, Japan themselves to make that happen. The best way to bring the Americans on side is to leave them out. And I think we'd have a lot stronger stand in NAFTA when we're looking at other markets like that. Like you mentioned, diversifying your portfolio is important, whether you're investing or trading. You're absolutely right. The first question is a fairly short one. Will you maintain the agriculture and CFIA presence in the embassies and consulates around the world? It was so helpful in a lot of the issues that we fought. And Deputy Sergeant, you're well versed in some of the BSE situations and so on. So will you seek to maintain that footprint dedicated to agriculture and CFIA?
Well, listen, I think that would be under the purview of the Minister of Agriculture, but let me say as a personal story...
Well, you have to provide the space.
Well, if it's only space, we'll provide. What I can
indoors.
Well, in some market, you prefer that. No, but in a very real sense, I was at Gulf Food in one of the largest food exhibitions, and I must say we had someone, and I want to thank that person and the program that is in place. Someone from Agriculture Canada was with me, and we had roundtable. And I must say, to your point, Mr. Ritz, his advice, his relationship, his determination was instrumental, I thought. And, the feedback I got from industry was at the roundtable is that they really welcomed that presence. So on that basis, I would say things that work well should continue.
Just to follow up on negotiations with China, and I've been there a number of times. I'm a huge booster of Canada-China trade on our terms and our timeline. I'd love to be a fly on the wall when you break the news to them that they have to include gender parity
in an agreement. I think that would be an interesting discussion. Market economy and extradition agreements and so on are markers that China put down before they'll even continue on with their talks. So I know you say it's the finance minister who will make the decision on market economy, but is he not seeking your counsel on that? I would certainly think this would be a whole-of-government approach. It wouldn't just be Minister Morneau making that off-the-wall decision on his own. So I would hope he's seeking your counsel.
Well, I would not expect the Minister of Finance to do that without talking. But what I can say on that, I think China, despite the comment in the article that was referred, I think they very much understand, like you said, sir, that we will do that on our terms and our time. And the progressive elements has been part of our policy. It is clear to everyone. It has been clear, I think, the officials from day one. But like you said, we will do that on our terms. And our terms include that we want some progressive elements, that human rights have been part of our foreign policy and have been part of our trade policy. And I think people register what I'm saying now and should take that into consideration if we are going to have a win-win discussion together to pursue trade between our two nations.
Shift gears to, there could be a downside to going too far with China when we're still negotiating with the U.S. There's a bit of concern there. They did have a good meeting the other day, I understand, Trump and Xi. Having said that, President Trump has presented before Congress a list of 40 issues that he wants addressed in NAFTA. Some pertain to Mexico, some will get caught in the crossfire. Are you providing a list like that to your cabinet? I would imagine, your deputy minister is hard at work on that list to present before Parliament in Canada to say, here's our offensive positions, here's our defensive positions. Is that work underway? And when do we have a chance to have a look at it? Because he's gone public with his.
Yeah, he's gone public. I mean, as you rightly say, my colleague Chrystia Freeland is taking the lead on that.
We obviously, you must be of counsel, so.
No, yeah, I appreciate. But I would say it would be premature for us to comment on their position. This is not, as you know, an official position. This was a draft, as you've seen it, I've seen it. So what I can say is that we're very much prepared. But I would say on this, on the basis of a draft that was circulated in the media, I think you would think that it's wise for us to look at that, but keep our position under consideration for the time being. When they have put something official on the record, we will be prepared to respond.
Well, forewarned is forearmed. I just wanted to go back to CETA a little bit, and you talk about being the gold standard, and I couldn't agree more. It was great to be a part of that from day one. It's not a 10-year-old agreement. Negotiations started almost 10 years ago, but the agreement was signed in principle in the fall of 2014, so it's as current as you're going to get. I do agree with you. It's a gold standard deal, as you also pointed out the Ukrainian deal, but TPP followed on that as well. And I'm wondering why the reticence, why the other countries in the world that I talk to and continue to deal with, the ambassadors, the trade ministers, and ag ministers, are looking for some leadership from Canada. So I'm hoping when you go to Vietnam, you're actually, if you're speaking first, saying, let's form a parade, we're ready to lead it. Well, Japan is looking to link arms with somebody. They've already ratified it. Australia and New Zealand are well along those lines as well. Vietnam and Malaysia, of course, are countries that need our help to draw them this way as opposed to being taken into the RCEP with China and Russia and so on. So I'm hopeful that you're going to be that stern when you get there and say, let's get this done sooner rather than later. The outline is there. There's not a lot of work to be required to make the changes to make a TPP 2.0.
Well, I appreciate the question. I can say we are very much leading. Like you said, with the colleagues we have had, Canada was very much front and center. Not only Canada was asked to lead first, but we were asked to lead even when China and the U.S. came in the room. They said, can Canada start again to lay the ground? So Canada was first.
Well, neither one of them is part of TPP at this point. So.
No, I know, but they were invited in that later discussion. And it's just to give you example. You say, is Canada leading? Well, when you have Minister Munoz, who said, you started first. Can you start again first? Because that's going to lay the ground, and hopefully we'll have a constructive discussion. I can say that with New Zealand, with Australia, with Chile, we had a number of discussions before getting there, and we cannot be more front and center in pushing the agenda, and also working very closely with Japan to make sure that we are. And just to your point, we want to be front and center. We are front and center, but we thought in Chile in a
positive way,
in a very positive way. Just to say that I thought it was the smart thing to do when we were in Chile. for some nations to recommit to open and free trade without the U.S. and that part of the world was already a step in Chile. It would have probably been too much to ask for some delegations to start looking at options without having had advisement.
For some of them with the U.S.
Well,
it's gonna
sorry,
be
you're
easier.
gonna have to-
There's a huge
Yeah.
anti-U.S.
But it
sentiment.
was just difficult, as you appreciate, for some nations to commit without having had the chance to consult with their own officials, and that's what we said in the process. But there were a number of nations that
Thank you,
wanted
gentlemen.
to take that under
We'll
advisement.
have you back.
Huh?
We'll have you back. after-
Definitely, but I'm happy to come back, obviously.
Okay. Well, thank you, and that ends our round. So I got a kind of a question for you, Minister. Our committee's very successful because we plan quite far ahead all the time, and so May is going to be we're going to be dealing with probably 24 stakeholders dealing with the United States, and June we're going to wrap up in the United States and Washington our trip, and probably when we come back at the end of September for a week, we're going to finish our report on Canada-U.S. But looking ahead, like we have October, November, and we're going to start planning that today, what do you think our committee should be looking at in that October, November, leading up to the December? What do you think our committee should be looking at?
Well, let me say what I would welcome input from the committee. Let's put it the other way around, where I would welcome input that the important work you're doing. For me, I see CETA as a game changer for our nation. I think there's enormous potential, particularly for SMEs. And certainly, if this committee was to consult Canadians broadly on how can we make it real for SMEs to take full advantage, and Mr. Ritz would know that these agreements are good, but they're only as good as people take advantage of the provisions in these agreements. So if the committee, let's say I would welcome if the committee was to engage with Canadians to see we have a rollout process in place. As the Prime Minister said, better is always possible. So if the committee was to listen to Canadians to say how can we make this agreement real for them, certainly we would be welcoming that and listening, obviously. The other thing that comes to mind, Chair, would be probably Asia-Pacific. As we move to the following months, clearly we will be engaging. I think a number of members mentioned China. I mean, as you know, we have started a public consultation on China, but I would certainly welcome if this committee can spend time, some of your time, in listening to Canadians on China, their concern, their hope, their challenges, what they see in that agreement, what they would like this government to do on their behalf. I would certainly welcome the input. We're going to do part of the work on our own, but certainly I think this committee has enormous, not only in consulting, but there's people in this committee which have enormous experience in the field, which I think would be beneficial for us and our officials to listen to. So I'd certainly be willing to listen to you. If you ask me like that, on top of my list, those would be CETA, making it real for people so that we make sure Canadians benefit from what they have in front of them in the coming weeks. And then looking forward, hearing out what I've heard today and some concern, well, let's listen to Canadians. And if you can assist me in that process so that we have the best possible agreement, if ever we have an agreement, in our consideration of our feasibility study, well, certainly I would welcome the input from the committee as part of this feasibility phase.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks.
Time for you to go.
I'm just told by the officials that time is running, but
Just before you leave, Minister, I just want you to know that your consulates in both Seattle, San Francisco, and Denver did a tremendous job in helping us last week.
Really? I
And
appreciate
the
it.
people there were professional, first class. I just think it's important that you understand that.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you, because I got feedback also from your tour, and whatever we can be helpful. Like I said, this is, when we cross, I think, even this building, this is Team Canada in action, and you're very much part of the team which can help Canadians. And like I said, it's every region, every riding. So Chair, I'll be happy to report back, perhaps when I come back from Vietnam, to let you know, and I very much welcome your input, and thank you again for your work, and I'll pass the board.
Mr. Hoback was so right, and our committee's going to send some, appreciation notes to them, but it wouldn't be bad if you or your deputy minister could send it on. It was really very active. But Minister, thank you for your extra time and your advice and taking the questions, and thank you for opening up to meeting us again, and we'll be looking forward to that. And your parliamentary secretary keeps us well in tune to what's going on between both of us. So again, thank you, and we're going to suspend and go in camera. And okay. Yeah.
you.